One old penny, one tiny detail, and a story that most people never notice. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're revealing 3 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that continue to attract collectors. 1952 D Wheat Penny. 1955 Wheat Penny, no mint mark. 1954 D Wheat Penny. These classic coins feature the iconic wheat ears reverse design and were struck in a copper alloy composition. While most examples are worn and heavily circulated, collectors often search them for rare varieties, mint errors, and exceptional condition pieces. Watch until the end, the final coin has a detail many people completely overlook. Let's begin with coin number 1. Have you ever reached into your pocket, opened an old coin jar, or searched through a family collection and spotted a worn Lincoln Wheat Penny? Maybe it looked dark from decades of circulation, its edges were smooth, and the wheat stalks on the back were barely visible. Most people would assume it is only worth 1 cent. Yet to many collectors across the United States, one small coin from the Denver Mint continues to attract attention more than 70 years after it was struck, the 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, there is nothing flashy about this coin. It is small, made from a copper alloy, and has spent much of its life changing hands in grocery stores, diners, gas stations, and neighborhood banks. But behind its modest appearance lies the story of post-war America, the growth of the United States economy, and one of the longest-running coin series in American history. The 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark below the date on the obverse. By 1952, America was entering a period of remarkable economic expansion. Families were buying new homes, businesses were growing, highways were expanding, and millions of Americans depended on small change for everyday purchases. Pennies were an essential part of daily life. Long before digital payments and credit cards became common, nearly every purchase involved coins. A single cent could still buy useful items in many communities, making the Lincoln Wheat Penny one of the hardest working coins in circulation. The Lincoln cent itself had already become a historic piece of American currency. Introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first regularly circulating United States coin to feature the portrait of a real historical person instead of the symbolic figure of liberty. That decision marked an important turning point in American coin design. The portrait on the front was created by renowned sculptor Victor David Brenner, whose profile of Lincoln remains one of the most recognizable images in United States coinage. Brenner's design presented Lincoln with quiet dignity rather than dramatic heroism, reflecting the president's reputation for honesty, humility, and determination. Abraham Lincoln's story continues to inspire generations of Americans. Born in a simple log cabin in Kentucky, Lincoln grew up in modest circumstances, educating himself through books and determination. His rise from humble beginnings to the presidency became one of America's greatest success stories. During the Civil War, Lincoln faced challenges unlike any previous president. The nation was divided, families were separated by conflict, and the future of the Union itself seemed uncertain. Through difficult decisions and extraordinary perseverance, Lincoln guided the country through its greatest internal crisis. His Emancipation Proclamation changed the course of American history by declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate-held territory. While the Civil War demanded enormous sacrifice, Lincoln's leadership helped preserve the United States and redefine its commitment to liberty. His life ended tragically in 1865, but his influence continues to shape the nation. Every Lincoln Wheat Penny serves as a reminder of those ideals. Turn the coin over, and the reverse reveals another classic American design. 2 graceful wheat ears frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above them appears the national motto E pluribus unum. Although the reverse appears simple, its symbolism is powerful. The wheat ears represent agriculture, hard work, growth, and prosperity, qualities that played an essential role in America's development throughout the 20th century. During the years when the wheat penny circulated, farming remained one of the country's most important industries, and the reverse design quietly honored that foundation. By 1952, the wheat penny had already been part of American life for more than 4 decades. Children saved them in piggy banks. Shopkeepers counted them into cash drawers. Newspapers, candy, and everyday necessities were often purchased using these small copper coins. The Denver Mint produced more than 746 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies bearing the 1952 D-date. While this large mintage means the coin is not rare in ordinary circulated grades, truly exceptional examples become much more difficult to locate after decades of everyday use. Most 1952 D pennies entered circulation immediately after leaving the mint. They traveled through countless hands across the United States. Every transaction added another tiny scratch, another contact mark, or another sign of wear. Today, heavily circulated examples often appear dark brown, with softened details on Lincoln's hair and coat. The lettering may show noticeable wear, while the wheat ears on the reverse gradually lose their fine lines after years of handling. Many collectors actually enjoy finding these worn examples because they represent authentic pieces of American history. Each mark tells part of the coin's journey. Most ordinary circulated 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Pennies are generally worth only a small premium above face value, depending on condition and collector demand. These values are estimates, not guarantees, and can change as the market changes. Uncirculated examples tell a different story. Coins graded around MS63 to MS65 often retain much of their original mint luster, with relatively few contact marks. At MS66, MS67, and higher, examples become increasingly difficult to locate because so few escape circulation in outstanding condition. Collectors also search carefully for mint errors. A repunched mint mark, RPM, may show traces of the D mint mark punched more than once. A doubled die can create visible doubling on letters or numbers. An off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned during striking. A die crack appears as a raised line caused by a fractured die. A die clash results when the dies strike each other without a blank coin between them. A broad strike happens when the collar fails to hold the coin during striking. On extremely rare occasions, a Lincoln cent may even be struck on the wrong planchet, creating a fascinating error that attracts serious collector interest. If you own a 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, begin with a careful examination. Check for the small d mint mark below the date. Weigh the coin, it should be approximately 3.11 grams for a standard bronze issue. Inspect the rim for unusual shapes or weakness. Use a magnifying glass to examine the date, lettering, and mint mark for doubling or repunching. Finally, study the wheat ears for remaining detail, since sharper reverse features often indicate less circulation wear. Most examples will simply be honest survivors of everyday American commerce. But every experienced collector knows that remarkable discoveries sometimes begin with the coin everyone else overlooks. The 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Penny is more than an old 1-cent coin. It represents the determination of Abraham Lincoln, the craftsmanship of the Denver Mint, and an era when a single penny played an important role in the daily lives of millions of Americans. And while this Denver issue remains a favorite among wheat cent collectors, the next coin in our journey takes us to one of the most famous dates in the entire Lincoln cent series, the 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin forever linked to one of the most celebrated mint errors in U.S. numismatic history. If there is one Lincoln Wheat Penny that almost every American coin collector has heard about, it is the 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny. Even people who have never built a coin collection often recognize the year because of one of the most famous mint errors ever discovered in the United States. But before we talk about that legendary variety, it's important to understand why the regular 1955 Philadelphia issue is such an important part of American numismatic history. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and like most Philadelphia cents of the era, it carries no mint mark beneath the date. During the 1950s, Philadelphia remained one of the busiest coin-producing facilities in the country, supplying millions of cents needed for everyday commerce. America in 1955 was experiencing remarkable growth. The post-war economy continued to expand, new neighborhoods were being built across the country, and families filled stores, movie theaters, and restaurants every day. Coins moved constantly through the economy, and the humble penny remained one of the most frequently used denominations in circulation. The Lincoln Wheat cent had already become a familiar sight to every American. For nearly half a century, its design had remained largely unchanged, connecting generations through one simple coin. Children placed them into blue coin folders, parents dropped them into savings jars, and businesses counted thousands of them every week. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, remained unchanged from earlier issues. Lincoln's calm expression reflected the values that Americans continued to admire: honesty, perseverance, courage, and leadership during the nation's greatest constitutional crisis. Every time someone held a wheat penny, they held a reminder of a president who preserved the Union during the Civil War and helped shape the future of the United States. The reverse continued the classic wheat ears design. Two elegant wheat stalks surround the words 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum appears across the top. The design honored American agriculture, hard work, and national prosperity. Although simple, it became one of the most recognizable coin reverses in U.S. history. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 330 million regular 1955 Lincoln Wheat Pennies for circulation. Because of this substantial mintage, ordinary circulated examples are generally available to collectors today. However, the year 1955 became legendary for a completely different reason. During production, a small number of cents were struck from a working die that had received a dramatic doubling during the die-making process. The result was the famous 1955 doubled die obverse, one of the most celebrated error coins ever released into circulation. Unlike minor doubling seen on many coins, this variety is immediately visible without magnification. The date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust" appear boldly doubled, creating one of the most dramatic error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. Because many entered circulation before the mistake was discovered, people actually received them as ordinary pocket change. Today, authenticated examples are among the most desirable Lincoln cents ever collected. It is important to remember, however, that most 1955 no-mint mark wheat pennies are normal coins and are not the famous doubled die variety. Collectors should never assume every 1955 cent is rare simply because of its date. Condition also plays a major role in value. A heavily circulated 1955 wheat penny often shows smooth areas on Lincoln's hair, cheek, and coat. On the reverse, the wheat ears gradually lose detail, while scratches and contact marks become more noticeable after decades of use. These worn coins are common survivors of everyday American commerce. Most regular circulated examples are generally worth a small premium above face value depending on condition and collector demand. These prices are estimates, not guarantees. Coins preserved in mint state condition are significantly more desirable. Examples graded MS63 through MS65 retain much of their original red or red-brown color, along with stronger design details. Higher certified grades such as MS66, MS67, and above become increasingly scarce and may command substantially higher premiums depending on eye appeal and market demand. If the coin is an authenticated 1955 double die obverse, values can increase dramatically because of its historic importance and collector demand. Exact prices vary widely based on grade, color designation, authenticity, and market conditions. Collectors also inspect 1955 cents for additional mint errors. Possible discoveries include off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes, broad strikes, and extremely unusual wrong planchet errors. Each genuine mint error tells part of the manufacturing story behind America's coinage. If you own a 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny, begin with a careful inspection. Confirm that there is no mint mark beneath the date. Weigh the coin, it should be approximately 3.11 grams for a normal bronze issue. Use a magnifying glass to examine the date, liberty, and "In God We Trust." If the lettering appears boldly doubled rather than slightly blurred from wear or machine doubling, the coin deserves closer examination by an experienced numismatist or a professional grading service. Also inspect the rim, reverse wheat ears, and overall surfaces for unusual striking characteristics. Most 1955 wheat pennies will simply be honest circulation coins with decades of history behind them. But every collector dreams of finding that one extraordinary example hidden among ordinary pocket change. The 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny remains one of the most fascinating dates in American coin collecting because it reminds us that history sometimes emerges from unexpected mistakes. And while Philadelphia gave collectors one of the world's most famous error coins, our final stop takes us back to Colorado and another overlooked issue, the 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that quietly circulated through millions of American hands while earning its own respected place in the wheat cent series. As we reach the final coin in this journey through the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, we arrive at another issue that many Americans have handled without ever realizing its historical significance, the 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it appears almost identical to countless other wheat pennies. It is small, brown from decades of circulation, and often found in old jars, family collections, or forgotten albums. Yet for collectors, this Denver Mint issue represents another fascinating chapter in one of America's most beloved coin series. The 1954 D Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck at the historic Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date. During the early 1950s, the Denver facility was producing enormous numbers of coins to meet the demands of a rapidly growing American economy. Following World War II, the United States experienced tremendous industrial growth. New suburbs expanded around major cities, automobile ownership increased, and businesses flourished across the country. Every day, millions of pennies passed through grocery stores, movie theaters, diners, gas stations, and neighborhood shops. Although the penny carried the smallest face value, it remained one of the busiest coins in circulation. The Lincoln cent itself had become a national symbol. Since its introduction in 1909, it honored Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States and one of the most respected figures in American history. Lincoln's story continues to inspire people around the world. Born into poverty, he educated himself through determination and hard work before entering politics. His leadership during the Civil War preserved the Union during its greatest crisis, while his commitment to ending slavery transformed the nation's future. Those achievements gave the Lincoln cent a deeper meaning than its 1-cent denomination might suggest. The portrait on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, presents Lincoln with quiet confidence rather than dramatic expression. Even after decades in circulation, this design continues to be recognized by millions of Americans. Turn the coin over and the familiar wheat ears reverse immediately identifies it as part of the classic wheat penny series. The two wheat stalks surrounding 1 cent symbolize agriculture, productivity, and the hard-working spirit that helped build the United States. Above them, E pluribus unum reminds us of the nation's founding ideal out of many, one. Although later Lincoln cents would feature the Lincoln Memorial and eventually the Union Shield, many collectors still consider the wheat ears design one of the most beautiful and timeless reverses ever used on a United States circulation coin. The Denver Mint struck more than 251 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies dated 1954 D. That large mintage means the coin is generally available today in circulated condition. However, locating examples with exceptional eye appeal becomes much more difficult because most entered circulation immediately after leaving the mint. A typical worn example often displays dark brown surfaces, softened details on Lincoln's hair and coat, and reduced definition in the wheat stalks. These signs of wear developed naturally through decades of everyday use. Every scratch, contact mark, and smooth area reflects another chapter in the coin's journey through American commerce. For collectors, that history has value beyond simple appearance. A heavily circulated coin tells the story of ordinary Americans using it to buy newspapers, school lunches, groceries, or bus fares many years ago. In circulated condition, most 1954 D Lincoln Wheat Pennies are generally worth only a modest premium above face value depending on condition and collector demand. These values are estimates, not guarantees, and the market changes over time. The picture changes when the coin survives in outstanding condition. Examples graded around MS63 through MS65 often retain original mint luster and much stronger design details than circulated coins. At MS66, MS67, and above, truly exceptional examples become considerably more difficult to locate because relatively few escape decades of handling. Collectors especially appreciate coins that retain their original red, RD, color. Bright red examples are much scarcer than the more common red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, pieces because copper naturally changes color over time as it reacts with the environment. Professional grading plays an important role in determining collector value. A high-grade certified coin with excellent eye appeal often attracts far greater interest than an ordinary circulated example, even though both were struck in the same year. Collectors also carefully search for mint errors on the 1954 D issue. One of the most desirable is the repunched mint mark, RPM, where traces of the D mint mark appear from multiple punchings during die preparation. Other possible discoveries include doubled dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes, and broad strikes. Although these errors are uncommon, they remain exciting because they represent unusual moments during the minting process. Very rarely, a Lincoln cent may even appear on the wrong planchet, creating one of the most dramatic error types sought by advanced collectors. If you own a 1954 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, begin with a careful inspection. Confirm the D mint mark beneath the date. Weigh the coin using a precise digital scale. A normal bronze wheat penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the date, lettering, mint mark, and wheat ears for doubling, repunching, die cracks, or other unusual features. Look closely at the rim for irregularities and examine the surfaces for remaining mint luster. Most examples will simply be honest circulation coins that faithfully served their purpose. But experienced collectors understand that extraordinary discoveries sometimes begin with the most ordinary-looking pennies. The 1954 D Lincoln Wheat Penny reminds us that the true value of a coin is not measured only by price. It also reflects history, craftsmanship, and the generations of Americans who carried these small copper coins through everyday life. Whether your wheat penny is bright red from careful preservation or dark brown from decades of circulation, it represents a lasting connection to America's past. And that is why the Lincoln Wheat Cent continues to inspire collectors around the world, because every coin, no matter how common it may appear, has a story waiting to be discovered.